Hi, we're here today to show you a standard installation of either oscillating mist fans or fans in general or just misters. All these things really are the same, basically just the delivery device is going to be a little different. So here we've moved a little bit ahead of the video. Before we were out here today, what we did is we pre-ran these lines. So this ceiling wasn't up. It made it really easy to do. So there was no ceiling. So we pre-ran 4 home runs for our 4 oscillating fans. Move the fan around there. Got 1, 2, 3, and a 4th over by the grill.
One over there.
So what we did before you were out here today is that was all pre-run, and we ran it to our low voltage single gang new construction boxes, which don't have a back to them, so you don't have to cut anything out. Actually, I could stick my hand all the way up in the attic if I wanted. Then we send you the fitting here that adapts it to our 1/8" high pressure line. Then it comes down to our stainless steel mist ring.
Get around you there. Okay.
If you drill out this center piece right here, you can get the fitting to where it's basically sandwiched. The 2 fittings are basically sandwiched between this plate, but only our plates work, or if you have at your local hardware store, it needs to be an unbreakable plate, which is made out of plastic. So that gets us under the sink. In this case, the plumber teed off here and gave us a secondary standard 3/8 compression, valve. So what we did is our basic 3/8 low pressure line. All we did was we pushed it right in there. Now you have to make sure that the tube, I've already tightened this, you have to make sure that the tube bottoms out against the fitting down here. Make sure it's all the way in, and then you turn it about 1.5 turns past finger tight, and then that compression ferrule bites into this tube, and now it's on there. So now what we're going to do is, we've already jumped a few ahead, but we're going to go ahead and turn this on. Okay, so we pre-ran the line down, goes back out, you don't have to zoom in, and then we basically drilled a hole through this pre-construction, or afterwards you could do it, it would just be a little more difficult. We came through that wall, and they had a little storage closet over here that he wants to keep his bikes in and stuff like that. So we said, hey, perfect place to put the pump. So we came through the wall right here to an elbow. We basically are going to add one more clamp right there just to make it a little more secure and just nice and tight looking. We used Tapcons, came up the wall into our filters. A moment ago, the filters were leaking right here, and so what we did was you turn the water off. You push in on the tube, then push the fitting towards the body of the fitting, then twist and pull out on this, and that's how a push fitting works. I cut about 1/4 inch of the tube off, re-push it back in, and now we have no leaks, okay? The pressure gauge, which is the next thing in the system, has you'll see it on our website, it has a little red area that says low water pressure filter change. What that's going to tell you is that over time the filters are going to clog. So if they're not in a service plan or you're not maintaining your system, luckily we, following the water line up, have a low pressure shutoff switch. So the low pressure shutoff switch, if these filters become too clogged over time, or if in another application you're attached to a garden hose fitting, like over on the side of the house, that's going to turn off basically you're going to reduce your water pressure, you'll have no pressure, and then this pressure switch doesn't allow the pump to run without water. So if the filters are dirty, it'll probably start cycling kind of like on, off, like over time, because it'll see a little bit of pressure, but it's just not going to get adequate flow through the filters, and then it just means your filters are dirty. And you can know all that just by looking at the gauge. We're the only company in the United States that offers this as a standard item with their filters. We try to go the extra mile. Didn't cost anything to do it. So we go into the pressure switch. Now, key part of when we install this is, before I turned the water on a second ago, is what I would have done, or what we already did, is we took the last possible place that the line goes into the pump, and I pulled this out. I pointed it out the door here, and I bled the filters for 2 minutes, okay? So that makes sure that any dust that's in this line, when it was manufactured, anything that was in the filters, since this is an addition, anything that was in the plumbing, all that stuff is out, and then I push it in. If you don't do that, what's going to happen 9 times out of 10 is you're going to call us and you're going to say, hey, I just installed my brand new pump and it won't turn on. That's because there was something in the line, and there's a diaphragm in here, a rubber diaphragm, so all the dirt went into the pressure switch and basically clogged it, so that now the pressure switch isn't seeing the water pressure because there's something in its way. So what you got to do is you got to unscrew this and attempt to clean it out. Sometimes you can clean it, sometimes you can't. You can always bypass this, but that, you know, you're running the risk of running your pump without water, and there won't be a warranty for that. So then the water goes into your inlet solenoid. That starts and stops the flow of water. The pump increases it to 1,000 pounds of pressure. Goes out here, and then it goes up here to where we did a unique little 3 T's. So we ran into a T, then came out of the T, and went to the other 2. That created our 4 home runs. Now the reason we did 4 home runs, since this was new construction, is while this tubing is rated for 3,000 pounds of pressure, there's no reason that that tube should ever burst, because we're only running at 1/3 of its safety rating. And really, in this case, safety is really anything that's going to hurt anyone. It's just could cause water damage. So, but we're only running at 1/3 at 1/3 of its rating. So if for whatever reason somehow something leaked or blew, there is no fittings up in the attic, because we've ran individual home runs by doing it this way. So that's another nice thing, is that if somehow the line bursts, all we have to do is pull a new piece through. Super simple. So it doesn't cost anything extra, maybe $20 in plastic tubing, nylon, and you're done. Let's talk about this line right here. This is our dump valve. This is what makes us unique from other companies, because this is, every time the pump turns off, this opens. Okay, so we've got 1,000 pounds of pressure here. This dump valve opens and lets the water dump out on the ground. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. Okay, and that allows it to dump out on the ground. I have it on cycle right now, so you'll hear it in a second. Normally this would purge out on the ground. In our situation in here, we didn't want to obviously accumulate water in here, as this is just from us installing it. But so what we've done is Tom installed an extra T-fitting on the outlet of the filters, and we've basically, our low pressure 3/8 actually was able to push over the barb fitting that comes standard on these pumps, and didn't require an extra fitting. So he pushed the 3/8 onto there and went right into a T. So what's happening when this thing turns off, if you watch the gauge, is you'll actually see that, actually zoom in on the gauge, well, you can't see it, but basically you see the gauge is bouncing a little. That's because when it turns off, basically this is getting a little bit of that excess pressure back, you know, into the filter. Now, I don't recommend doing it, you know, this way unless you're limited in space like this. You'll see it in a second when it goes up. I don't really recommend doing this for big systems. If you had a lot of tubing out there, that could cause problems, because now you're back feeding pressure into the plumbing lines. But since we have a nice gauge here, we're able to look and see that, you know what, it's making it spike up to like 90 psi, so it's not really an issue. Plus, this is not any type of, zoom back, this is not any type of a push neck fitting, so I mean the pressure of just pushing it over to the barb is, you know, is not a lot. So in the worst case scenario, this would blow off if you had a system that had a lot of tubing out in the field. Now we're gonna walk over here. So most important things we've talked about so far are bleed the line before it goes into the pump for 2 minutes. The second most important thing is, and Tom actually didn't do it here, and I had to scold him because he had 3 clogged nozzles, I promise you, before we shot this video. 3 of these fans were clogged. Of the 3 of the nozzles of the 9 that we have over here. 12. So the reason that, well, the 9 we have here, 3 over there, so 12. But so out of what I was telling you, we had 3 that clogged, and the reason for this is because you've got to bleed the lines. Okay. So in addition to bleeding the filters, what you need to do is before you put any nozzles in, okay, once you get your system looking exactly like this, you have all your nozzles off. You need to turn on the pump and just run it, okay? Let it run for about 45 seconds before you turn on before you screw the first nozzle in. Then you're gonna go to where the water is dripping first, okay? Then you're gonna screw the first nozzle in, then the second nozzle, then the third nozzle, and then whichever fan next has water dripping out of it, you're gonna go to that line. And then you slowly screw in each nozzle until, you know, the water comes out, the last area that it's gonna come out. Then you're going to need to turn off your pump, then you'll screw the last nozzle in, and then you'll turn your pump back on. That's super important because you don't want to have clogged nozzles as soon as you install your system. If you do it like this, 99% of the time you'll screw your nozzle in, everything will work perfectly from minute one. But it's not a bad idea to purchase an extra couple nozzles just to have on hand in case something does clog. One other unique thing is that the end result of that dump valve you just heard me talking about is that you can see me standing here and watch what happens every time the mist cycles and turns off. You'll notice, if you look real closely, and Tom's going to zoom in, you see how instantaneously it stops, okay? That's because of the dump valve. That's what makes our equipment unique, is that very few misting companies offer this type of technology. We offer it on our commercial series pumps for commercial locations, which is a triplex plunger pump, or our residential pump like you just saw here. But that's huge because if you notice, if you pan back, Tom, right now it's probably ambient. Right now we're in Florida, it's about 65% humidity out. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so you can see the mist is dissipating quite well. If I shoot this video again at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow when it's 95% humidity, when the sun hasn't come up yet to burn off the heat, and I run this without fans like you see here right now, what's going to happen is I'm going to get a foggy area. And in some cases you want fog. So some people ask, well, what's the difference between a mist fan and a pool fog system? Well, you put more nozzles in a tighter area and you will create fog. Like if you notice here, like my hand's a little blurry because there's so many nozzles in that tight area and the fan's not turned on that I'm getting a little bit of a fog effect. So if you use a little bit larger nozzle, maybe go one size up than you normally use for your climate, and put them in a tight area, that's how you get fog. Let's see, what other things to talk about? Second question is, people ask about coverage area, okay? Tom, pan way back. So as you can see here, go all the way back. So as you can see here for this patio, okay, when I get the phone call, go all the way back, I want to see everything. So as you can see here for this patio, if they called me out here and said, hey Bill, how much is it to install a cool mist system? I get this question all the time. The sky is the limit, folks. There is no limit to what you can do with a cool mist system. For instance, let's talk about other things we could have done out here. You could have installed a mist curtain along the gutter, so you could have actually ran the line in the gutter and had a 45-degree nozzle adapter coming off the edge. So if I'm having a party during the day, like right now, when it's hot, I'd have a ball valve in the pump room back there. The ball valve, I'd kick that on, and now I'd have an extra 10 nozzles of mist out here, like if I'm out here drinking with my buddies or whatnot, that's going to feel really good during the day. Now at nighttime, I'm going to turn that off, okay? All I want at nighttime is my fans, because the fans are going to help the water to evaporate. So I had a patio that's, I don't know, call this about, 500 square feet, 600 square feet. It really depends on the budget, people. If you wanted, you could have 2 fans on this patio. You could put 1. Now, I don't think that spending the money for the pump and everything, it's not a good expenditure just to do 1 fan. With these people, I said, hey, if you want to have a pretty good coverage area of this patio, let's go ahead and put in 3. They could have done 4. There would be nothing wrong with that. We put 1 over by the barbecue grill, which I think is really important because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm grilling, I get hot. So in this area, I've got the fan mounted at 7 feet high. It's going to cover, kind of no matter where I am in this area. Let's now over here, if you'll notice, okay, on the ground, I've got this tubing centered underneath the fan, okay? So right now, you can tell I'm at a 5'10". Okay, this fan is mounted at about 90 inches off the ground, or 7.5 feet. It's actually kind of on the low side. Okay, it's at about a 30-degree pitch. Okay, so if you pan out, if you notice, okay, if I'm standing right here, that's about the direction that the nozzles are going. Okay, if I'm sitting down in my chair, in my lawn furniture, and I'm sitting right here, I can feel it right now. Okay, that is basically doing a coverage area of about 3.5 feet. Okay, so it's going to cover about 3.5 feet. In diameter of direct cooling. Now I'm going to feel some of the residual of the cool air kind of flowing up off the ground because these 3 fans are all going to make patterns of air. But let's talk about for a minute if we want it. They said this height was fine. If we raise that fan an extra 1.5 foot, okay, it completely changes the trajectory of that pattern. So if this fan is now up here, let's say we mount it at 8.5 feet off the ground. Okay, now if I take the same path that you currently see, that it's angled at, okay, does that look about right?
No, that's about right.
Okay, now I'm about here, okay? So now, mounted at 8 foot, now I'm covering a, 5.5 foot diameter circle. So, apply a little bit of geometry. I think you guys can kind of tell. Hopefully you're zoomed far enough back, you can see that this particular ceiling, now this fan can be mounted shallower. We could have cut the rod that it comes with and it could be mounted up shorter. This right here is an 8 foot ceiling, or no, I'm sorry, it's a 9 foot ceiling. It's 111 inches from ground to ceiling right here. So, one of the shorter ceilings I would say, but again, like I said, you can cut this rod and mount this a little bit higher and give you more of a trajectory. Other recommendations, as options when people say how much is a cooling system, okay? Again, sky's the limit. They could do 2 fans, they could do 10 fans. I mean, there really is no limit. So one thing I did suggest to this particular customer is that her lawn chairs over here are going to be pushed up against here, and there will be a flower bed. What we will have here, we will have risers. These are also available on our website. This will go into the ground like so. We will bury the line next to it, and then on the top of this we can either put an elbow, we can put a 45-degree adapter, we can put a T-fitting, which will create 2 nozzles. No limit. So if she's sitting over here laying in her lawn chair, this is going to be on a ball valve, and then this will kind of mist you while while she's sunning. You could, other ideas, I mean, if you had other patio, furniture back here and you wanted some mist fans back there, you can mount them on this concrete wall. You could put a wood post into the ground, a 4x4. You could mount the fan to the 4x4, our normal 18-inch fan, which is all weather rated, meaning it can be under the elements. What else? I've had one customer that they wanted misters on the wall. So we actually did a misting pretty much all around the backyard, basically pointed into the backyard. It's not going to be a whole lot of cooling from that in higher humidity environments like Florida, but it will be nice during the day. Alright, so one other thing I wanted to talk about on this particular job is that again, we had been out here and pre-run all the lines up in the ceiling, so it made it all nice and easy. You could obviously chase this if it was already, if the ceiling was already up. You could also, do a nice job of using a cord hider and just, attaching the tube to the ceiling and then dropping down. But what happened here was they were supposed to have called us, actually called Tom, and they were supposed to have called before the pavers went in. So what happened is we now all of a sudden I talked about a minute ago, we're going to put risers over here in the flower bed. So all of a sudden now we can't really run a line over there because these nice pavers are already in. So what Tom noticed is you have to work with the home's construction a lot of times. We have a gutter right here. Okay. So
pull that door a little bit.
Now we're gonna say, okay, how do we get into this gutter? Well, there's many ways to get in this gutter. Tom's come up with a couple so far. They actually have this convenient ventilation vent here. He can actually pull the screws out of this, and we're going to attempt to
They're already out. Go ahead and pull it out.
Oh. Alright. So what we can now do is drill a small hole in this and run the line right under this lip, okay? Then drill a small hole in this gutter. Be sure to caulk it. Then we can chase the tube down this drain spout, and it pops up over here.
Okay, right about there. So in the dirt, and then I can turn the corner with it.
So that once now we're outside of our kind of island, so to say. Now we're into the dirt, and now we can get over to the lawn chairs. Now there's another method that's an option. We also have up there. We could have done this. So we could drill a small hole in the side of the home. Be sure to caulk that afterwards. Do a really good job, and could have come in there and fish it up through the ceiling here and tap onto it here, and that would be how you would add on to this particular system. So that's a little bit more advanced, but definitely an option. So you could also run your drain line out there too, which was what we were initially going to do, and then Tom came up with this idea. But again, you do not do this unless if you have like more than, if you're using 3/8 tubing, don't do this. If you're using more than 100 feet of tubing total, don't do this, because I would worry that how much pressure will get, how much volume of water will be at 1,000 psi on the other side, and then when this opens, you're allowing that to kind of flow back into the home's plumbing, and you can have some big issues. But we've got a pressure gauge on it, and we're not seeing any high pressure, so I don't see a problem with it in this application. But that's only because we have less than 200 feet of tubing, and that's it.